Hello, campers, and welcome back to another episode. So, yeah, a new what if. You've not done this in a month. Yeah, yeah, I was gonna think of doing this, what if another time, but I prefer like doing it now since, it would be cooler to have what if Noah became the smarts of Heather's alliance instead of Beth. So, because, after this, I know the alliance doesn't start until the pigs sleep. I just prefer getting to know what would happen if this happened. So yeah, start off with not so happy campers. Number one, Ezekiel. Like I think I need to remember what the order was. Who came out in the first episode? So the first person that was introduced is Beth. Beth is the first one to arrive on the island, and will be a representative for the Screen Gophers. The second one that is introduced is DJ, and will still be on the Killer Bass. Gwen is the next one introduced and has a distaste for Chris already, and tries to break her contracts, but Chris says the lawyers made too many. So she's obligated, but then she gets put onto the Screen Gophers. Next they introduce is Party Boy Jeff. He is on the Killer Bass. As we know, I'm taking this from a different tier list instead of using a single use. So yeah. The next one introduced is good old Lindsay, who will be put onto the Screen Gophers. Next we have brutish and villainous Heather, who of course will be on the Screen Gophers as usual, and she has a massive distaste of the contestants. And then next gets introduced is Duncan, who will be on the Killer Bass, of course. And he does not like surprises, as he says. So yeah, he gets introduced. And then flirts with Heather, and she instantly denies it and goes next to Lindsay because she's bored. Next one introduced is Tyler. Tyler will be on the Killer Bass, and he gets launched into the luggage, and everyone is shocked about this. So yeah, Heather is shocked about this. So yeah, and Chris says, "Cool jump, dude," and Wicked Wipeout. And then next is Harold. Harold is also going to be on the Killer Bass. So, yeah, I'm taking literally from order, so, yeah, we're gonna start off with we're gonna get the rest of them out the way. I think, but instead of, I'm gonna do the first change. Noah and Owen get introduced together, because they're like dudes at this point. Because we're gonna say in this timeline the Redonkulous race happens first, so Noah and Owen are very good friends at the moment. So I think they get introduced here. I know I'm including this here, but like I literally have no idea how would Noah and Owen be like a good duo up in this. The next one introduced is of course Katie and Sadie, who are placed onto different teams. So I think, yeah, Sadie and Katie go on different teams, so yeah. The next one introduced is Crazy Izzy. So yeah, he gets put onto the Killer Bass, of course. Next one introduced is Bridget, who's also going to be on the Killer Bass, and you know that. Next introduced is Trent, who goes next to Gwen. She's kind of crushing on him already. Next introduced is Cody, who tries to make a game with everyone else, every other girl, but everyone has a massive distaste for him now. The next one introduced most likely would be Eva. Eva! Sorry, I like doing that. I thinking of it. Like, I'm thinking like Wally when, Wally said Eva! So that's why I think, like, doing that. It's funny. The next one introduced is, the lovable and hot, Justin. Not actual hot. Don't take that out of context. So, yeah, Justin's introduced as the fourth last person. I think the next one introduced would be, CIT class Courtney on the Killer Bass, the last girl on the Killer Bass. We have Lashawna being introduced, and, without everyone knowing, and not out the viewers knowing, Harold starts crushing on Lashawna, and then he says his a line, and then Lashawna gets pissed at him. You know what I mean. And then Ezekiel was introduced as the last person on the Killer Pass. Chris tells him to, I know you're a homeschool. I know you live on a farm. Don't take anything out of context. So he's on the Killer Bass as well. So let's actually talk about, Not So Happy Campers Part 2. Let's do it. That's Part 1, not Part 2. Okay. So, the episode continues where the last episode left off, with all the campers gathered at the top of the cliff. Chris reveals the first challenge of the series. The campers must jump off the 1,000-foot high cliff into a safe zone in the lake, which is represented by a small ring of boys. For each camper who completes the challenge, the team receives a point after each contestant has had a chance to jump. The points are tallied, and the winning team gets an advantage in the next part of the challenge. Building a hot tub. The team with the best hot tub gets to have a hot tub party that night, while the losing team has to vote out a camper for the first time. Bridget thinks the challenge is pretty straightforward, but Chris reveals that the rest of the lake is filled with a rare freshwater man-eating sharks. Howard painfully lands in the water, but still in the safe zone. The killer bass are up, but no one wants to go first. Bridget nervously volunteers and successfully lands in the safe zone. Inspired by a victory, Tyler enthusiastically jumps next. Aldo crashes painfully into one of the boys in the lake. He still lands in the safe zone. Jeff, Eva, and Duncan then successfully complete their jumps with no problem. However, DJ is afraid of heights and he does not jump, and he is forced to wear a chicken hat and take the escalator down the cliff. Ezekiel and Hal complete their jumps, but both are injured. Ezekiel hits a rock protruding from the cliff and Harold lands on his crotch. Courtney refuses to jump. Citing a medical condition, Chris warns her that not completing the challenge could cost her the team to win, with the possibility of her being eliminated. However, Courtney accepts the risk, believing that the majority of the opposing team will not jump. Sadie and Izzy are left on the killer bass, but Sadie refuses to jump without Katie, as the two girls are best friends and do everything together. Both girls beg Chris to allow one to switch teams, but in this timeline, I will not allow it to happen. So yeah, the Screaming Gophers are up next. Katie and Sadie just jump together even though they're on separate teams, and they make it. Lindsay supports Heather's decision and refusing to jump, and LaShawn interferes, arguing with Heather about not jumping and refusing to lose the first challenge because of not jumping. Because of her, the two trade insults until LaShawn throws Heather off the cliff and falls into the safe zone. LaShawn jumps after her, followed by Lindsay, Gwen, Cody, Izzy, and Justin. Justin lands outside the safe area, but much to the concern of the other campers, but his appearance charms the sharks, and they carry him to shore. Beth does not jump because she's afraid, but Trent and Noah, unseen, jump successfully. After most of the team has jumped, Owen is the only one left. But Trent gives him words of encouragement. I was pretty darn nervous. See, the thing is not strong. No, I'm not that strong of a swimmer. That's what he said. Okay. Jeff says, I'm looking at the sky and he's thinking, there's no way he's gonna make it. Gwen says, I actually thought if he jumps this, he's gonna die. An extremely nervous Owen conquers his fear and jumps off the cliff to win the challenge for his team. The Gophers are nervous, but Owen overcomes his fear and jumps off the cliff. As he falls, he makes a huge splash, knocking Trent and Noah, who are still in the water, to the beach. While winning the pool advantage for his team to carry the crates, he loses his bathing suit in the water, much to everyone's disgust. So I don't ramble on forever. We're just gonna still have the Screaming Gophers win, and I think because most of the votes will be on Courtney, and I think this time Ezekiel won't say a word about it. But Courtney says DJ had a worse experience doing it as well. So everyone most likely agrees they just vote off DJ. So yeah, it is very rude doing this, but I think everyone would just vote off DJ for not jumping, and Courtney being like an absolute A class winner would just tell everyone to. So DJ is eliminated first, which is weird and racist, but um, I think if it wasn't going to be on Courtney, it'd most likely be on DJ. And plus, Ezekiel doesn't be sexist yet. So yeah, um, the big sleep. So the big sleep. Okay. The episode begins with Chris waking up the two teams with the second sound of a horn. Shauna wakes up abruptly, hits her head on the top bunk, and angrily asks Chris if they are keeping farm hours. Ignoring her, Chris announces that the challenge begins in 1 minute with 20 kilometer run around the lake. Owen asks if there's breakfast, and Chris says there will be after the challenge is complete. A grumpy Eva tries to punch Chris when she hears this, but restrained by Duncan and Jeff. Courtney says, okay, that girl Eva got to get a handle on her temper. She's only been here 1 day, and she's already thrown her suitcase out the window and broken the lock on one of the bathroom doors. Heather says, I don't run, and I definitely don't run in high heel wedges. The run begins with some campers actually running and the others just walking. Heather has this chance to asks Noah if he wants to ally. But Noah says only if you allow Owen in the alliance, because both Noah and Owen are very good friends. Heather obliges to this because he needs Noah's brain to help her out winning this thing. So so she kind of accepts this. So and then Heather walks up to Lindsay and saying, would you like to ally? You helped me. You literally were nice to me during the cliff jump. Would you like to ally with me? Lindsay says yes quickly because she's dumb. She's dumb, and you clearly know that. And she doesn't ask Beth in this timeline because I think she only needs two. I think she only needs Owen, Noah, and Lindsay because Beth is just a nobody in this case. So yeah. Gwen says, after a whole week of brown sludge, I almost cried when I saw that banquet. Yeah, buffet. We're just gonna skip all the way to the buffet. And Owen says, and then I saw it. The buffet table. It was beautiful. There was turkey and nanino bars and baked beans and maple syrup. Ha! Can I have a minute? Sorry, that's fake crying. Um, the campers arrive at the banquet, grateful to be eating real food after a week of chef's disgusting meals. When they are finished, Chris announces the real challenge, called the Awake-a-thon, where the last person awake wins the challenge for the team. The 20-kilometer run and the banquet should make it even more difficult for the campers to stay awake when asked by Trent, Gwen predicts that it will take an hour, maybe less, before everyone falls asleep. 12 hours into the challenge, Chris finds that all 21 campers are still awake, but Owen is the first one to fall asleep. Gwen says, the Awake-a-thon was definitely the most beautiful thing done in my life. Okay, Heather says, so my strategy is to get three other campers to form an alliance with me and take to the final four. The question is, no, actually, Noah is perfect and using it as perfectly as possible. Owen could just be a good help because he's a favorite to others, and Lindsay is a dumb idiot. She can do as much as I say. Then Beth says, "Oh my, okay, never mind." Lindsay says, Heather said I couldn't date him. She never said I couldn't like him. On her way to the bathroom, Eva drops her MP3 player, and Heather, well aware of Eva's short temper and conflict with her team, takes it and hides it. Heather explains to a confused Lindsay, Noah, and Owen that, just to Lindsay and Noah since Owen's fallen asleep, that it's part of strategy and the way to win. So, Noah's confused about this. Why did you take Eva's MP3 player? Because he kind of feels like, she could be a good ally in the she could be a good ally in the alliance. Heather says her short temper would most likely get her to leave the alliance after 1 hour. It's better off to eliminate her now. Noah kind of agrees with this. Owen is not seen, and the scene happens when Owen takes all of his clothes while he's sleepwalking, and Heather, Lindsay, and Noah are shocked, so are the rest. Then I think Noah would have to follow Owen to get him to come back and ask Izzy to come with him because she's strong enough to pull Owen back over, and Izzy agrees to this, and Heather says, what are you doing with the other team? Izzy's a strong player. I need her to help me pull off Owen, because Owen has a liking to Izzy. Heather obliges and saying, if we lose, you know who we're voting off. It's gonna be Katie. It's gonna be Katie. If the team sort doesn't happen, it's gonna be Katie. It's gonna be second boo if they lose. Then I think as soon as Noah, Owen, and Izzy come back, I think Katie, Cody, Justin, LaShawna, Bridget, Courtney, Duncan, Tyler, Jeff, Harold, Ezekiel, Eva, and Sadie would be falling asleep. So I think that Bridget, Izzy will be the only one awake on the other team. I think Beth and Lindsay would be fast asleep, so is Heather. So it's Gwen, Noah, Owen, Trent, and I think Cody, Justin, and LaShawna fall asleep. So it's that amount. Then I think Bridget falls asleep at this point. I think Beth falls asleep, and I think both. I think um Trent fall asleep, and Gwen says, "Stay up. We gotta stay up." And Izzy and Noah snaps his fingers, and Izzy falls asleep. And Heather wakes up saying, "How did you do that?" Izzy's kind of like a dog to a dog leash. I can just snap my fingers, and she can just fall asleep. That's how much I talked with her so much I can just control her. Heather's kind of like shocked about this, and she kind of laughs about this. Gwen is surprised that they've won because of Noah's expertise, and she's kind of like happy she's got someone smart like Noah on their team. So yeah, Eva smashes around the room, and Heather gives her MP3 player back, and I think everyone even is. I don't think either Ezekiel wouldn't say a word that he doesn't know how to talk about with women. But I think the boys' alliance would start here. Duncan would ask Jeff, Ezekiel, and Tyler for an alliance. Tyler says yes. Jeff says yes, and I think Ezekiel would say yes. And I think Eva gets voted off, of course, like in the original timeline, because of her short temper. So this would lead to Dodgeball. So the episode opens with the two teams gathered in the main dining hall, where many of the campers are still showing signs of fatigue from the previous episode's Awake-a-thon challenge. Noah isn't singed about this. Oh, sorry. Noah isn't actually pretty much singed from this, since he was mostly just trying to get Owen back with Izzy. But I think Gwen and Trent are like sleep. I think Gwen is just sleep deprived, and the only way to snap Gwen back to normal is Noah saying in Gwen's ear, Trent likes you. And Gwen fully wake up, and this is when Chris announces it will be a dodgeball challenge, and Courtney's kind of annoyed, saying, "Damn it, we should have kept Eva and DJ. They would have been strong players." And she would be probably saying in the confessional, "We are so sucking right now." Okay, yes, Eva was a psycho and DJ was a coward, but at least they were athletic. And meanwhile, Heather gives Noah, Owen, and Lindsay an overview of the Alliance rules. But Noah says, "Can't I have some leeway?" Saying that Lindsay can just follow orders. No, Owen's only here because he's listening to me. Heather says, "What do you got?" Noah says, "Rule 1. You can't leave the Alliance. Only if Heather or I say." Rule 2. You can't have a relationship with someone else on the other team. I'm saying that to you, Lindsay. You like Tyler so much, I can't allow it. So, this is where Lindsay just kind of just balls and leaves. Katie comes in and saying, do you guys, what happened to Lindsay? Heather says, "Oh, she's just, sad that we lost, that, that, well, actually not, she doesn't have any idea what to use." Noah says, Lindsay is crying because she lost her strength in iron, and Katie says, "Oh, okay." Heather thinks for a moment. Katie is actually a good person and also kind of a target, because she's not with Sadie. Heather says to Katie, "Well, listen, I think we need numbers. Would you like to join an alliance?" Noah is shocked when Heather says this to Katie, and says, "Why are you doing this?" Heather says, "She's dumb. Without Sadie, she doesn't have a brain. Like Lindsay, she's easy to control. So is Beth, but I think Katie's more easy to trust with." Venus. Noah sighs to this and says, like, "This ain't the smart reason. We need to stay undercover. We can't have a fight to we can't like get like another person in, or people start noticing us being closer together, and they'll notice maybe an alliance would happen." So yeah, the challenge starts, and of course the Screen Gophers win the first game and the second game, but I think Ezekiel and Harold will be the final two in the third round, and Courtney says, "Harold, Ezekiel, do you have some kind of way to beat them? And the five people that they're going against is Lashawna, Cody, Justin, Owen, and Noah, because he's going to participate in this and trying not to get himself into a target zone. But Ezekiel does a throw ball move, and he throws it backwards, hits the wall, and hits Cody and Noah, getting them out, which shocks the entire team because they didn't know Ezekiel was actually that good. And then Harold does his catches Owen and Justin's ball, which gets them out, which leads to I think Lashawna. And Harold kind of gets eliminated by Lashawna, but Ezekiel would hit Lashawna right in the head, which would lead the Killer Bass to win. So Noah is an option here. Heather says, but Heather lies and says, "Hey everyone, Beth was lying with trying to lie to me, trying to ally me to her alliance of one." Everyone is shocked about this, and Beth says, "Wait, you know I wasn't. No, I wasn't. Seriously. Um, I was not trying to do anything. I was just trying to be good in the challenge." And she stutters a lot, and everyone else doesn't buy this, and I think because of this, Beth gets eliminated in this one. Because I have to get continuity out. If you can't have Noah, you're gonna have to say goodbye to Beth. And then Not Quite Famous would happen at this time. I know I've been talking about only 3 episodes in nearly half an hour, but like, get it? It's a new rule. It's a new thing I'm doing. Next is Not Quite Famous. Cody tries to impress Gwen by imitating Trent. Fails miserably. The episode opens up in the Gophers girls' cabin, with Lindsay complaining about running out of fake tan. Gwen, who has just woken up, tells her she is not interested, but Lindsay is completely oblivious to her sarcasm. Chris instructs the campers over the loudspeaker to meet at the stage for the next challenge. As the campers make it to the bleachers, Trent saves a seat for Gwen, and Lindsay blows a kiss at Tyler. No one notices and, like, nudges Lindsay not to, because it's part of the Alliance rules. Lindsay has to oblige by this, because, yeah, I guess. Um, 3 people have to be chosen on each team to try and get style points on your team. Heather leads it and says, I should go. I think Justin has a move to do, and he thinks it's perfect to do. And I think Trent, does a quick version of his song he's gonna do in the round, and everyone likes this, so they recruit him to do it. So without DJ here, I think Courtney would put herself up. I don't think she'll like Bridget doing her things like a handstand for 20 minutes, because I feel like if she's gonna eat some food, she's gonna puke over the entire thing. So I don't think she would put Bridget on the spot and do that. I think Harold would do. Harold would have to do is like beatboxing, and Courtney would just say that and say yes. And then I think Duncan Jeff would have his like surfboarding, like not surfboarding skills, skateboard skills put here. So yeah, for the challenge, like the real challenge here, um, I think Heather would still do a ballerina move, so she doesn't make herself a target, and gets about seven chef points. Then I think Harold comes out, do beatboxing, and get 10 on the chef meter. Then I think Justin comes out and does his moves to woo chef. He only gets 6 points because of this. Then Jeff comes out and does his skateboarding skills, only getting 5 on the chef meter. Then I think Courtney will come out and does her skills and gets 8 on the chef meter, which just leaves Trent, who gets a 7 on the Sheffer meter. So, as I was saying, I think Corny got 7. Wait, give me a sec. Corny got a 7. Bridget got, well, actually, no, it wasn't Bridget, it was Harold who got a 10. And Jeff got a 6. That's 23 points for the Killer Bass. Trent got a 6. Justin got an 8. And Heather got a 7. Only by a 2-point ratio, the Killer Bass win. So they have to get someone out next in the elimination. Everyone thinks Trent for getting the lowest points in the thing. Noah says that could have more Alliance members if Trent and Gwen start dating. Heather agrees to this and says, how about we vote off Pretty Boy Justin? He might have a fake Assad trying to be like a goody two-shoes villain. Justin is shocked by this and finally speaks, saying, I'm not trying to be evil here. I'm here to be a perfect person. I'm trying to win the money for charity. Everyone is flustered about this. Even the guys are like flustered by this. But Heather and Noah take no effect to this. Owen is staring ahead. Noah snapped Owen out of it, and Heather snaps Lindsay, Gwen, and the others out of it. And and Heather tells Noah to forcibly change the votes against Justin. So I think Noah does that and gets Justin eliminated because of this. So yeah. Next is the sucky outdoors. Chris explained to the campers around the campfire that their next challenge is to survive one night in the woods with their supplies. They were given and returned to camp the next morning. The team that returns first wins the challenge and gains invincibility. Heather and Duncan are given maps and compasses, though Courtney snatches the map from the latter by Chris, who warns them about bears. LaShauna shares her fear of bears, but Owen reassures her by making up a story about a previous bear experience that he and his grandfather had. As he adds to her own story of a bear rummaging through her neighbor's garbage with spaghetti noodles dangling from its teeth, leading her to believe the bear ate her neighbor's cat. Katie and Sadie are in the confessional together for the first time. Trent tries to talk to a downtrodden Gwen on the way to the campsite after hearing her diary read in the previous episode, but she rejects his efforts to comfort her to his disappointment. Heather plans to eliminate Katie next. Oops. Okay, as I was saying, in the confessional, Katie would be talking about, how much, she absolutely adores Sadie. Like, she's like my BFFFL, which stands for Best Female Friends for Life. Then, the Gophers arrive at the campsite. Owen notices that there's no food. Trent concludes that since this is a survival game, they have to tend for themselves. Owen, who claims to be a hunting expert, goes into the woods to get their food. Forget about that. Okay. A pizza arrives for the camper crew, much to the arrogance of the hungry, screaming Gophers at the Gopher camp. The campers get hungry while waiting for Owen. When the delivery man arrives with the pizza for not them, but for the camera crew, much to their annoyance. Fortunately, Owen returns with a catch of fish for everyone except Heather. Is grateful with him as he tries to bite into bite into one before sheepishly asking if it's better to cook it first. Okay, so at this point, Noah and Izzy say to the other, well, Noah and Izzy to their respective teams tell them to find lots and lots of leaves. Try to build a couple of tents for one for the girls and one for the boys. But um, because I think it would be because of Ezekiel, a thunder strike because Ezekiel's kind of unlucky. That a fun what like a lightning strike hits down onto the one of the Killabass's tent, leading them to freeze in the cold. And in the morning, Courtney is found sleeping on Duncan's chest. Jeff and Bridget are sleeping together. Harold and Ezekiel are just next to each other, just bored. And Sadie and Izzy are just next to each other. Gwen wakes up next to Trent and Cody. Lindsay wakes up normally. Heather and Noah wake up together, which everyone is confused about. But Heather and Noah say it's just mutual. And then they say in confessional that was weird seeing them together, but um we're not a thing. It's just we had one unlikely moment, and Lashana and Owen and Katie are the last ones to wake up. So, I think this, as in timeline, I think the Screen Gophers will reach there first. And I think obligingly, I think everyone agreed that Ezekiel ruined this for the entire team. So I think, in elimination, I think they vote off, um, Ezekiel. But Ezekiel says, I have an immunity idol. This is completely a lie. And then they decide to vote off Sadie, because everyone obliges to Ezekiel's theory that he has the Ezekiel's persecution, that he has the immunity idol. So Ezekiel is surviving for another episode, which I know I'm keeping Ezekiel alive. It's just because it's my way to sort out this what if. So it's my opinion, no one else's. So yeah. Next we have phobia factor. Oh shoot. Phobia factor. So the episode picks up after Sadie's elimination, as it did in the previous episode. Katie is now depressed over the elimination of her best friend, and now is sobbing uncontrollably in the dock of shame, with only Lindsay offering her confident support. Lindsay insists that Katie would want her to be strong and move on without her, which Katie refuses to accept. Lindsay finally pulls Katie away, who clings to the dock and manages to break a plank before lamenting about missing Sadie. When Lindsay and Katie return to the Screen Gophers by the campsite, they're surprisingly joined by the Killer Bass, who bring some leftovers from their tuck shop party. Though they try to convince the Screen Gophers that they're joining them out of kindness, but they're confused since they won the challenge. Why do they have the stuff? Oh, Duncan says we just stole your stuff. We literally just stole all of it last night, and we just bought it out this morning. And everyone and the entire team is shocked. Even Noah's shocked at this, because he's super smart to know where to hide them. And Heather's kind of annoyed. Who was guarding it? And Owen says it was the Shauna and Cody. And Heather says, of course it was them. It's the most estranged one and the weird one. And both Cody and the Shauna are surprised by Heather's claims about them, and they're so annoyed at Heather now. And Gwen says, so suddenly everyone having a big share feast by a fire? Like, Noah went on about her mortal fear is being covered by bugs. Harold is afraid of ninjas, and even Heather is admitted she's afraid of sumo wrestlers. Everyone starts talking about their greatest fears. Noah is afraid by being covered in bugs. Harold is afraid of ninjas. Heather is afraid of sumo wrestlers. Gwen says her fear is being buried alive, while Lindsay says her fear is walking through a minefield in high heels. Owen expresses a fear of flying, and Izzy reveals that she has a similar fear of being on an airplane. Jeff says he's afraid of hail, calling it small but deadly. Bridget then expresses her fear of being alone in the woods. Katie mentions that she is afraid of bad haircuts as she grabs the plank. Lindsay agrees, then changes her mind and claims that her fear is even more scarier than a minefield. Cody then expresses his fear of defusing a time bomb under pressure. Courtney claims she's not afraid of anything, which is met with suspicion by many. Duncan expresses the most obscure fear of all: standees of Celine Dion in a music store. After Trent admits that he's afraid of mimes, he insists that Courtney shares her phobia, but she firmly asserts that she has nothing. Duncan reminds her of how scared she was when he told his scary story in the previous episode, causing her to get snippy with him. Tyler is horrified to see his worst fear. Chris reveals the next challenge at breakfast the next morning. The campers will face their worst fears in the game he calls a Phobia Factor. Lashawna wonders if it could be worse than the breakfast they just ate. Heather spits her drink in Trent's face when Chris calls her to the theatre for sumo. Gwen is then told by Chris that she has a date with a few tons of sand at the beach. Lindsay asks how they knew what their fears were, and Gwen tries in vain to explain the nature of a reality show to the ditzy blonde. Chris asks Chef for a special order for Tyler, and Chef hands Tyler a piece of fried chicken. Tyler nervously bites the head of the chicken-shaped food, only to be startled when a head of a real live chicken pops out. Lindsay and Sadie are forced to wear disgusting wigs for the challenge. The campers, Katie and Lindsay, the campers gather around near a worm-infested swimming pool, and it's Noah's turn to face his fear in order to complete the challenge. Noah shrugs her shoulders and jumps into the pool, burying himself in worms and even eating some of them. The Gophers lead 1-0. Lindsay and Katie are brought to the main lodge after revealing that their greatest fear is bad haircuts, and Chris brings 2 wigs for them to wear. Owen grabs one and puts it on, doing a ballet dance before tripping over and collapsing. Chris gives the wigs back to the girls and puts them on their heads. Izzy and Owen are taken to a yellow plane that looks like it's about to fall apart. Piloted by the chef attendant Hatchet. As the plane flies pantingly over the island, then they both scream in horror. Howard opens the stall door to the bathroom to find himself surrounded by 3 ninjas. He pulls out a pair of nunchucks and starts spinning them expertly, but he hits himself in the face and falls unconscious in the toilet, which counts as a failure. Back outside, the Shauna faces, with the fear, a spider, and more precisely, Chef is dressed as a giant spider, but she flees, screaming in horror as he follows her. Meanwhile, in the theatre, Heather is pitted against a sumo wrestler. Heather panics and curls up into a ball, tripping over the sumo wrestler and sending him bouncing into a distance, hitting a tree. The Gophers lead 2-0. Bridget begins a 6-hour seclusion in the woods around the camp, and while she acts like she can handle it, she panics at the sight of Noah at her, near her and he says, "I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I've been told they're gonna vote you up next. So you have to make Ezekiel say something sexist, or you're gonna get yourself out." Bridget gets this, and she is kind of shocked saying this. And Noah says, "He has an outdated view of the world. If you make him say something sexist, you can stay for another round, and you won't get voted off." Then Bridget agrees, and she survives it, making it to a 1-2 vote. Ezekiel just picked up the snake and finally reaches down and picks up the snake. Overcoming his fear, the bats are now 2-2. Judd faces his worst fear, mimes. With 3 minutes to go, Gwen is handling her challenge well enough, especially with Trent talking to her to kill time. She asked him why he is so afraid of mimes. Trent explains that when he was 4 years old, he and his mother went to the circus to see the elephants. And he got so caught up in the spectacle that he lost his mother in the crowd, and a pale mime came out of nowhere and started imitating him. He ran, but the mime followed him, and without stopping his routine, Trent is suddenly forced to face his fear as the mime approaches from behind and taps him on the back. Terrified, Trent flees screaming and loses his walkie-talkie. Gwen has no idea what has happened, but she's now alone in the face her greatest fear. Chris then takes Cody to the challenge of disarming a time bomb in the case made of several trash cans. Before fleeing, Chris says to tell him he has 10 minutes to disarm the bomb and hands him a set of blueprints. Trey continues to confront his own fear of mimes as the mime chases him. They won't stop for a moment. Trent tries to explain to the mime that there's no wall he is touching. As he sees the dog back at the camp, Duncan confronts with a life-size cardboard cutout of Celine Dion. Courtney tries to calm him down, which inspires Duncan to run up to the cutout and hug it. The Gophers and the Bass are at 3-2. Courtney gives Duncan a hug, a congratulatory hug, but quickly pulls away as the heat of the moment wears off. Trent is being chased by the mine, pretending to be trapped in a box. Trent runs to the dock of shame and dives into the water. When the mine to chase him, Trent assures him that his makeup will run, so he gives up and walks away, leaving the score at 3-3, which no one is leading is tied. Back on the beach, Jeff is napping in a chair when a tiny dark cloud appears overhead and begins to shower him with his first worst fear, hail. As the hail begins to fall, Jeff flees screaming, and the miniature hail cloud follows him. Lindsay notices the cloud and thinks it's adorable, so he asks if she can have her own. Trent watches Chris control the cloud by the remote and asks if he can make it go lower and hit Jeff harder. Chris calls Trent sick, but gladly agrees. Trent then asks Chris if he ever feels like he's missing something, to which Chris replies that he does all the time. It's not until Chris says he's going to bury Jeff in the hail that Trent realizes that he's forgotten about Gwen. Out in the woods, Bridget is holding her own, but still has over 4 hours to go. When she hears an explosion, while Gwen is digging up, Chris and Trent also hear the explosion, and Chris deduces that the explosion was Cody, blowing up and failing his challenge. Cody injured and covered in garbage. wanders through the woods in search of help, eventually coming across Bridget, who was frightened away, thus failing the challenge. Bridget says in the confessional, "Actually, I'd like to thank the producers for making me face my fear. I'm so proud of myself. There's really nothing to be afraid of." And then Bridget goes up to Ezekiel and says, "Well, well, do you think girls are stronger than boys?" Ezekiel says, "No. The men do the lot of heavy lifting." Courtney, Izzy, Harold, Tyler, Duncan, and Jeff hear this, and they're such annoyed at Ezekiel for saying something so sexist. And Ezekiel says, "Isn't that still now?" Jeff is confused by what Ezekiel is saying. It's because Ezekiel says, "I've got outdated views of the world. I've never been out the farm, and I don't really have any out views of the world." Everyone looks at Bridget like she did something wrong, and Bridget is confused, saying, no one got me up to do this." And everyone just looks at Noah and says, "I've got nothing to do about it." And then they look back at Bridget, saying, "But he forced me to do it." Jeff is kind of skeptical about this, eliminating Bridget. Duncan says she needs to go. She's playing with one of the boys. Jeff says Bridget might have some leeway on this, but how about you finally kick out your biggest annoyance, Harold? And then I think a time lapse would happen. Gwen completes her fear because Trent gets her out. Owen completes his fear with Izzy, so it's now 5-4. The Shauna beats her fear, so it's 6-4. I think Tyler doesn't complete his fear, so yeah. Courtney gets the chance to finish her there and gets 4 points, so it's 8-6. And then Lindsay and Katie complete their fear, so it's now 8-8, so it's now drawn. So the last person they have to get to complete their fear, and because Cody didn't do that fear, he puts it as a tie, and then says, "Izzy." Well, he asks, "Does anyone have a second fear?" Lindsay says, "I'm scared of walking through minefields." Okay, who else is scared of minefields? Ezekiel puts his hand up. And now Ezekiel and Lindsay must face a minefield as the tiebreaker challenge to figure out which team gets immunity. And because of this, I think Ezekiel wins this for his team, and the Killer Bass win, and the Killer Bass have to go to elimination. Gwen talks to Trent and says, "Who do we vote out? Heather is most likely not going to get out in this." And Trent says, "Maybe Katie?" But Gwen says Katie is actually pretty good at her challenge. So I feel like they choose the vote of Cody. So Gwen asked Heather, even though Heather hates Gwen, Heather says, "What do you want, Goth Girl?" Gwen says, "Cody is not really important, plus he failed his time bomb challenge. So, would it be easy if we just vote off Cody?" The shoulder comes in saying, "Are you trying to get off that string bean?" Gwen says, Lashawna, listen, Cody is a string bean. He has a crush on me. Does it feel better off if we just eliminate him now? Lashawna says, "Oh, fine. Cody gets eliminated in this challenge. I know it's way earlier. Plus, Tyler's still here. It's because Lindsay I think Ezekiel would still get the point for his team. So, I feel like this doesn't really work well. DJ, Eva, Beth, Justin, Sadie, and Cody. It doesn't make any sense, but I think it can still work here. And I feel like this would be one of the I'll talk about. So like I was gonna do all the way up to the end, but it's like I'm doing this for 50 minutes, talking about plots and stuff. So I will only go up to the merge, and then next episode I will be talking about the merged episodes and who will be in the merge. So I'll go as far as Bunch of Disgustingness, and then I'll talk about the final 12 episodes after that. So let's carry on doing it, and let's go to Up the Creek. So, in Up the Creek, the episode opens with Chris explaining the week's challenge to the teams. Except Noah, who's in the bathroom to win the challenge and invincibility, the Cabins must paddle their canoes to Boney Island to portray their canoes for 2 hours through the island's deep woods. Reach the other side, build a rescue fire that the Chris himself will judge, and then race back to Camp Aqua. Chris explains that Boney Island, their destination, has a legend that anyone who removes an item from the island will be cursed forever. So I don't think Ezekiel would listen well. I think he would be the one who gets the stupid thingy. So because he doesn't take any effect to this, and then Cody says in confessional, Chris told us to pick a paddling partner. But Cody isn't here, so I think instead of this, I think teams will go in two. So Heather, okay, it will be Gwen and Shauna, of course. I think Heather would ask Noah to go with her, but Noah says he's gonna go with Owen, so she's forced to go with either Trent to try and get Gwen out, or tries to go with Katie, but I think Heather just most likely just goes with Lindsay. So that leaves Katie to go with Trent. Then I think Duncan and Jeff will go together. I think Tyler would ask Izzy if she wants to go with her. Izzy says yes. Harold would most likely go with Ezekiel, which would leave Bridget and Courtney to go together as usual. So, I think the same thing would most likely happen. With not with the Killer Bass kind of losing, and they don't blame it on Zeke. They most likely blame it on Izzy for making the stupid fire charge. But Izzy would still get found out by the animal the police or something, and Izzy has to go, which leads to her own elimination. So yeah, and this leads to paintball deer hunters. So in paintball deer hunter, sorry, um, the episode opens with the campers being rudely awakened from their sleep by the sound of Chris flying over the camp in a helicopter, and quickly tells Katie, "You're now a killer bass," so they can even it up. I know this Trent says it's not really fair, saying, and Chris says that it is kind of true. And plus, I think you need one more boy on your team to make it either on your team. He'll switch Harold. I think they'll switch Harold onto the team, so we now have Owen, Noah, Trent, and Harold as the boys, and Owen, I guess, and the Shauna, Lindsay, and Heather as the girls, and then Duncan, Jeff. Oh, sorry. There we go. 4 boys, 4 girls in that team. 4 boys, 3 girls on the other team. So it makes it equal. I know I'm doing like a swap here, but it just makes more sense. So soon after, Chris tells on the loudspeaker that the hunters on each team will be Noah, Lindsay, and Trent. Trent on the Throne Gophers, and Ezekiel, Katie, and Courtney will be classed as the hunters for their own team. And Duncan, Jeff, Tyler, and Bridget are deer. Well, Harold, Owen, LaShawna, Heather, and Gwen are deer as well for their own team. Heather is kind of annoyed since Katie has gone onto the other team. She might have to convince Harold to help out. If not, she'll tell Noah, Lindsay, and Owen to vote for Harold as soon as the round ends. And this time, I don't think Courtney would be out because of Harold, because most likely Harold would be voted off before basic training. That's my guess. So, I think because of this, I think Ezekiel, Katie would suck, but Cordy does the best and shoots out Harold, Owen, and Gwen. And then I think Noah, Lindsay, and Trent all fully agree. Gwen and Bridget are out as well. They get shot, which leaves 2 on each team. Then Lindsay accidentally shoots Heather by accident. And Heather says, "Oh my god, Lindsay, you're an idiot." And Lindsay's, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Heather. And then, um, Trent shoots Duncan. So the final 2 are Tyler and Lashawna. So I think Lindsay would miss Tyler, and then Courtney would shoot Lashawna, which leaves the Screaming Gophers to go to elimination. So yeah, I think because of this, I think that even I think Gwen and Lashawna would be the only ones to agree with Tyler, Harold, sorry, that they need to vote off, Heather. So, but Noah, Trent, Heather, Owen, and Lindsay vote off Harold. 5-3 vote, Harold is gone. So we now have an even 12% of people. We have If You Can Take the Heat in the next episode. So yeah. So the episode starts with beginning with the most of the campers still asleep. Duncan quickly wakes up and starts to do some push-ups. But he stops and recoils in disgust. He quickly recognizes the smell, which is the aroma Harold used to have, but now it's Ezekiel having the smell, which is inches from his face. He pulls back and tells Ezekiel not to leave his crusty underwear around the boys' cabin. Ezekiel denies the accusation around the boys' cabin. Ezekiel denies the accusation, even though his mother sewed his name on the label, and he is the only one wearing wreaths. As Jeff and Tyler point out. So the trio decide to teach Ezekiel a lesson when a stubborn Ezekiel leaves to take a shower. Later, Chris informs the assembled campers that the challenge for both teams will prepare a 3-course meal with the chef. Okay, so for each team, I think Courtney would lead for her team, and then Heather says, "Why don't you lead, Noah?" Well, I'm not really a perfect leader, but I guess it could work. Lindsay, Trent, you're on apples. LaShawna have you're on thingy. You're on crust. Gwen and Owen, you're on pineapples. And Heather says, "Why are you looking just for dessert?" I'm actually thinking of apple and pineapple apple crumble. And Heather's kind of shocked because he's I think it would be a perfect meal that Chris would like, so they would do that. Corny says, "Ezekiel, Duncan, I need you to get some beef. Most likely get it from one of the bears." Ezekiel and Duncan are just confused and just do that. Katie and Tyler are forced to get some apples, and Bridget and Jeff are kind of told to get some seasoning. So they do that. So I think Ezekiel accidentally drops his unlucky statue near Courtney, and Courtney notices it and says, "Ezekiel, were you the reason Izzy's out? Howell gets switched on to the other team, and now we're kind of gonna lose here." And Ezekiel says, "Wait, is that? Wait, oh no, oh no, that I didn't mean for this to happen. That right there is the unlucky idol. Everyone is mad at him for accidentally bringing it back from up the creek, and now he's good on target now. And I think Chris would say that Noah's apple pie was a success and Courtney's beef Wellington sucked. So they have to vote off someone. Ezekiel is the only one to vote off Courtney. And everyone else votes agreeingly to Ezekiel. And Ezekiel has been voted off. Next we have Who Can You Trust? So, in this episode, the episode begins with the campers having breakfast in the main lodge, where Chef serves them leftovers from their previous challenge. Heather is still showing the effects from the Shauna pushing Heather into the freezer, which I should have mentioned this, but it's the same thing that happened. So yeah, and she blamed both Shauna and Gwen for what happened to her. Duncan steals one of the cups in the main lodge, prompting Courtney to lecture him, leading Duncan to believe that she likes him, which Courtney denies. Later, the teams gather at the dock, where Chris tells the campers that this week's challenge is about building trust, mainly due to all the fighting last week, although he admits to the audience that they're just going to exploit for lights. Gwen says, I trusted Trent once. He left me buried alive on a beach. Chris claims that there will be 3 challenges, with duos, from each team, chosen by him to participate. The first challenge is the freehand climb up a face cliff, with Tyler and Duncan doing it. So they will be doing the first challenge on their team. And for the bass, and Heather and Gwen will do it for the other team. The Gophers. The Chris outfits them in climbing gear and explains that one person climbs while the other manages the slack. The climbers would have to deal with rusted nails, oil slicks, mild bombs, and whatever surprises they might encounter. Gwen and Tyler wear their climbing gear, with Gwen concerned about the presence of a second rope attached to her, which Heather tells her it's a backup line. During the challenge, Tyler takes a bunny out of his pocket and hands it to Jeff. Gwen openly expresses her contentment for Heather. It's all her fault. It's all her and Shauna's fault for messing me. I have got a dictatorate in revenge and humiliation. Gwen wins the first part of the challenge, but Heather takes off her skirt by pulling the second cord. During the cliff climb, Gwen falls back after the explosion, but quickly gets back up and continues climbing. Moments later, Chris sprays Heather with a surprise. Hanabaru sauce. And she lets go of the rope to rub it out of her eyes. Gwen falls to the ground. Duncan also gets sprayed by Chris, but to no avail, as Duncan is wearing sunglasses to cover his eyes. As opens his mouth and swallows the hot sauce, making Chris doubt their sadistic methods. As Gwen rejoins the climb, Heather pulls out the second robe attached to Gwen, and the skirt covering her rear is ripped off. As she passes in front of Tyler, much to her shock and embarrassment, as Tyler removes the torn skirt from his face. He notices Gwen's panties and is embarrassed. Despite the embarrassment, Gwen continues, but Tyler slips and manages to pull Duncan up by acting as a counterweight, leaving Tyler and Duncan suspended in midair. Gwen hits the top and wins the challenge for the Gophers. Moments later, before reminding that she already overexposed on TV and covering herself with her torn skirt in embarrassment. The next challenge, with Chris describes as an extreme cooking challenge, takes place in the dining hall. Bridget and Lindsay are assigned to be their respective team's cooks. Oh, what Trent says, okay, she's no Stephen Hawking. How bad could she screw up? So, Trent will be doing it as the eating, and Jeff would be doing on his team. So, Trent is poisoned due to Lindsay's lack of attention to detail. And then Chris says, Courtney and Katie will be doing it for her team, whilst it would be Noah and Lashawna doing it for their team. So later, Chris tells the team that the final challenge will be have 3 blind challenges by blind William Tell, the blind trapeze, and the blind tobogganing race. For the blind William Tell portion, in reverse of it, Chris explains that one member of the team will be blindfolded and will shoot crab apples at an arrow on each other's team member's head, with the first team to hit the arrow and causes the least amount of damage on the partner wins. After demonstrating on Tyler, he picks Lashawna and Noah and Courtney and Katie to compete, the latter substituting for Harold who for Owen who says he's allergic to apples. He's not. Well, Courtney and Noah wear arrows on their heads, and Katie and the Shauna fire apples at them. Jeff goes off with Tyler's money, presumably. Both shooters continuously fail at first, but LaShawna finally prevails by knocking Court and Owen's arrow off his head. Katie, on the other hand, is stubborn and continues to shoot wildly, even though Chris tells her the challenge is over. Katie hits Courtney, the bear, the seagull, and somehow hits Sasquatch Aqua. It takes Chris to shake her for Katie to end her random shooting. Courtney vows to make Katie pay for her irresponsibility before collapsing unconscious on the ground. Chris explains that the trapeze portion of the challenge, the trapeze is set up on a pond of electric jellyfish. One team member must jump into the arms of another team member who is spinning on the trapeze while blindfolded. They could end up in the pond if they miss it. Tyler asked Jeff where his bunny is gone before the challenge begins, and Jeff tells him that the bunny has ran away, which makes Tyler depressed. Duncan is seen walking off somewhere. For the kibbash, Bridget is reluctant to jump for I think I'll just go for Tyler for this. Tyler is on the trapeze, but he convinces her to do it, and she makes it to the other side. Heather then prepares to jump blindfolded to Lindsay. So it'll be this two for the challenge here. So yeah, it will be same as timeline, and Screaming Gophers will win, and Killer Bass would lose, and we'll have to say goodbye to the other half of the Katie Sadie duo, and I think they all abundantly agree that Katie needs to go. So Katie is eliminated in this. Now I'll be talking about basic training, which is going to go way different than it was in the timeline, because we have no Harold in this timeline. So yeah. Basic training. Okay. Chef forces the teams to go in several difficult obstacles, designed to push campers to their limits, by starting to conflict with the Master Chief. One camper goes too far and ends up being sent to the goes too far and ends up being sent to the boathouse. There he hooks up with Courtney, who is not quite his opposite as previously thought. So yeah, Chef leads the campers in a series of dance moves, the music blaring, and everyone does it. So people that would be instantly out by this, I think Owen, I think also Tyler, then I think Lashawna, then Trent and Gwen, then Jeff, then Duncan, then Lindsay, then Heather, then Bridget, and then Noah. So the Killer Bass would win overall, which is surprising, to say the least. So yeah, it's weird, but it works at the same time. So, oh, oops, there we go. So they have to go to elimination, and they have to pick who they vote off. Noah says, I think Lindsay has gone past their expectations, and she needs to go tonight. Heather sighs to this and saying, we can't, we can't be suspicious about our alliance. And Noah tells Owen to vote off Lindsay, and Owen says, why? Lindsay has gone too far, and I think she'll be kind of a problem if she starts dating Tyler. Owen agrees to this because he's faithful to Noah. Heather tells the Shauna that I think we need to bury our hatred and vote off Lindsay because she's unhelpful. Okay, everyone pretty much agrees that Lindsay's gone in this case, which is very weird, and now Tyler is very more depressed at the moment, which leads to extreme torture. So, in this challenge, Chris has the contestants paired off for the next Amusey challenge, a series of extreme challenges. Bridget and Gwen begin to dispute when they find a sign of affection that somebody left for his love. The same secret admirer sees an unexpected accident and gets an eyeful. So yeah, um, in this timeline, it would be Tyler who would see it, but he ain't really phased by seeing it because he needs to focus on the challenge and wins it for the Killer Bass, which will lead the Spring Ghosts to go to elimination again. And Heather is annoyed by this and telling Noah and Owen, I think it's finally time. We need to vote off you know who. And Noah says, when? No. Lashawna needs to go now. And Noah and Owen are just kind of shocked by how angry she is, and they have to just comply to what she says, or she'll go mental. So, it would be most likely a vote against Lashawna. It'll be a 3-3 vote. But Heather says, and Noah rigs Trent's vote against Lashawna. So, Lashawna is eliminated in this case, and she is shocked by this. She says, why? Oh, you went too far, babe, says Heather, and Lashawna is shocked. Now it's time for the mid-merge section, so, because there's too many boys, and because of this, I think Noah would be classed as a girl in this case, being on a girls' team. Because Cody was put as a girl in one timeline, and Chris says the teams are abolished now. So yeah. And whoever wins the challenge will begin a reward challenge. So the two teams are divided, with the guys on one side and the girls and Noah, and a conflict between the two girls of the girls. So Gwen would ask Courtney to stay on her side. Heather and Noah are on their side because they have to, I guess, and Bridget will have to go on one side of each, and then reluctantly goes on to Courtney and Gwen's side because how nice they are. So for the boys, they just party. They just literally just party the entire time, and the challenge is they have to force to choose sides. So in order to win an amazing reward, which is a weekend stay at a 5-star resort. So yeah, I think the same thing in timeline goes. Even though we don't have DJ here, I think Tyler will still just excel. And I think because of this, I think it'll be even more against the goals since we don't have the Shauna here. So, no one gets eliminated. And here is our merged players. Gwen, Courtney, Bridget, Heather, Noah, Jeff, Duncan, Tyler, Trent, Owen, and that is our 10. So, before I end it off here, I better show you who will be returning to the game. So, I'm going to not do this in timeline. Izzy is, of course, still going to come back because she's allowed. And it won't be Eva coming back. I think, to make more drama, I think I think Chris would bring back Justin. Nah, I'm joking. She's gonna bring back someone stupid like Beth or something. But I feel like they're gonna still go in timeline, and Eva is coming back in the same timeline. So yeah, long video. So yeah, and this is only part one to this. Part two will show what would happen in the future, past no pain to no gain, all the way up to the Total Drama Action cast. But I won't be talking about Total Drama Action if this gets a lot of if this doesn't get a lot of likes. So I will only go to the finale and the action cast because of this. So yeah. So that is it. This is it, everyone. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.